As you guys probably already saw, there is a new Yu-Gi-Oh! Ban list. It will not go into effect until March 15th, which is just a couple days away from now, and oh man, is it pretty exciting. I ran a poll after the ban list was revealed, asking you guys if you thought the list was good or bad, and I got an overwhelmingly positive response. People seem to really like this ban list, and I have to agree, because I feel like Konami finally hit some problematic cards that have been around for a while. So it was pretty nice to see them do that. And in today's video, I want to talk about the 5 decks that I feel got nerfed the most from this ban list. Now, as always with these nerf videos, I want to mention this does not mean that these decks are suddenly unplayable. I'm pretty sure that one of them is still going to be a top contender, maybe even 2 of them, but these are the decks that did take huge nerfs on the ban list, so we'll have to wait and see how players with those decks can adapt in the new format. If you guys enjoyed today's video, make sure to subscribe for more content. I will have a new video probably tomorrow or maybe the next day about the decks that got the biggest buffs on the ban list, so make sure to stick around for that. I also want to give a quick shout out to yesterday's video. I tried doing a new series on the channel that we're going to be doing over the next couple of weeks. Basically, I play against another YouTuber using some bulk cards that we bought online, and we really don't know what we're getting ourselves into because the cards can be good, but most likely they're going to be bad. Now, there were some issues with that first episode. We misread a couple of the cards, but I still think that first episode is a lot of fun, and I know that a lot of people enjoyed it, so make sure to go check it out if that sounds interesting to you. I will make sure to link it at the end of today's video. Anyway, without further ado, let's talk about 5 decks that got nerfs on the latest ban list. These decks are in no particular order, but I do want to start today's video by talking about the Drytron archetype. So this deck has been a top contender for a while now. It was a brand new deck out of Genesis Impact, and pretty much immediately it was a competitive strategy, and there have been many advancements with the deck. There are still many different ways to play it, and some of the opening boards that they were making pretty consistently were very difficult for many decks to deal with, and they have so many consistency boosting cards that a lot of people, myself included, thought that Cyber Angel Ben 10 would get limited on the Forbidden and Limited list. And that did happen, and it does hurt the Drytron deck, but what a lot of people did not expect is that Konami also decided to ban Union Carrier, which was a pretty important combo piece in many of the Drytron combos. So there are plenty of ways that you can play Drytron still, but they are missing some of their bigger cards. They have no Union Carrier, they have 2 less copies of Ben 10. That is going to hurt the deck in the long run, and it's going to be really difficult to keep up if the other decks keep getting better and better. One thing to note here is that Drytrons do have a new rank 1 Xyz monster in the upcoming Lightning Overdrive set, and that card is a big deal. That is a very good rank 1 monster, and it's going to help out Drytrons quite a bit. Still, we won't see Lightning Overdrive in the TCG for a few months, which means that for those next couple of months, Drytrons are in a rough spot. I think people will still play the deck. They still have so many crazy ways to make sure their combos happen on turn 1. There are so many searchers in this strategy, but they are going to be worse than they were last format. One thing to note though is that Drytrons no longer have to play against a true King of all calamities that their opponent summoned on turn 1, which could help out a little bit, maybe even more than a little bit, but I'm not sure if it's enough to make up for the loss of Union Carrier and 2 copies of Ben 10. We'll just have to wait and see. Next up, let's talk about Numeron Guru. Now, I know this deck was not like a big deal in the last format, but it was one of the more successful ways that people were able to use the Numeron cards. The Numeron cards just in general were probably way overhyped. I mean, people really thought that every single deck would be playing Numeron Network and Numeron Calling, and that really never happened because while summoning Utopic Zexal on turn 1 for basically free is obviously very good, the restrictions on the cards made it very difficult to splash into most decks, because if you wanted to summon other cards, you were going to be in for a rough time. However, Guru actually worked worked quite well with the Numeron cards, and while I don't even think that Numeron Guru was necessarily the most popular variant of Guru in the last format, because I know a lot of people switched to Dragoon variants, I still think it is worth mentioning that sadly the Numeron support is just a situation where Konami wanted to ban it because S0 is a very unfun card to play against, even if it wasn't that successful. But now a deck like Numeron Guru pretty much has no chance of ever seeing play, because while you still could play the Numeron cards for a quick OTK or for other combos, the main reason you were playing it in that deck at least was to summon S0 on turn 1, and that's really not possible anymore. You could make that Infinitrack on turn 1, I suppose, but that card is pretty bad right now, so I'm not sure it's worth playing that entire engine just to summon a card that might not even be that good. Next up, of course, we have to mention Virtual Worlds. This was like the top dog of last format. They could consistently summon 2 copies of True King of All Calamities on turn 1, and now that card is banned. So Virtual Worlds still have all of their other cards, and I know that there are some pretty strong turn 1 combos that people have already come up with. We don't really know how successful those weirder combos are going to be. I know the combo with the Inzektor rank 6 monster has got a lot of players excited, but regardless of what Virtual Worlds end up doing in the new format, they are worse off than they were in the previous format because they don't have that True King of All Calamities. Now, Virtual Worlds still have tons of great cards. It is a very consistent deck that can do a lot of different things on turn 1, and they have some really powerful extra deck monsters that other decks really can't make that consistently. However, without True King of All Calamities, they do lose their big turn 1 play, so just like in the case of the Drytron players, Virtual World players are going to have to adapt, and I'm not sure what that means yet, but obviously people are willing to experiment with different combos on turn 1, and it will be interesting to see which one of those combos prevails after a few weeks of testing. Virtual Worlds got hit less than the Drytron deck did, so I expect to see this deck in competition a ton in the upcoming weeks, even without any copies of True King of All Calamities. Still, it is going to be different, and I can't wait to see what people come up with. And then I want to mention Numeron Eldritch. So besides Guru, I would say that Eldritch was the best and most successful deck that was able to combine with Numeron over the past several formats, and now that deck is looking a lot worse without any copies of Utopic Zexal. One thing I do want to note here is that there was a very interesting going second Numeron Eldritch deck at a recent remote duel invitational that I liked a lot, and that deck might actually still be fine because that was using the Numeron cards more as an OTK engine instead of just an engine that was meant to summon S0. So maybe that type of Numeron Eldritch deck is still viable, but certainly not the going first variants that we've seen in the past. These Numeron Eldritch decks were never as popular as other variants of Eldritch, and yet now we don't really have a reason to play them that much because there's no S0. Like I said, maybe a dedicated going second variant can work in the future, but certainly losing that S0 does hurt the deck quite a bit. Even if the main goal is to OTK the opponent, having the option of S0 was always a nice addition to the strategy. And finally, I have to mention ABCs. I know this was not the most popular deck last format. I know it's more of a rogue strategy, but oh my gosh, it must feel so bad to be an ABC player. Konami limited Dragon Buster when Master Rule 5 happened, and maybe they did that because they thought that ABCs would be too strong, who really knows. ABCs turned out to not be that great with only 1 copy of Dragon Buster, so Konami gave us 2 copies, and then recently on the last ban list they finally unlimited Dragon Buster, so now we have 3 copies, but now we have Union Carrier banned, and that really sucks because Union Carrier was a big deal in that deck. It made a lot of the main combos work, not to mention that Union Carrier was supposed to be Union monster support. I mean, it's right there in the name. So a deck like ABCs, which actually does use Union monsters, is going to suffer because other meta decks were able to use Union Carrier in a more broken way. It makes me wonder if Union Carrier should have only been able to equip Union monsters in the first place. That probably probably would have been a lot more balanced and we wouldn't have had so many issues with the card. But as it stands right now, ABC's only had that one format, last format, with 3 Dragon Buster and Union Carrier, and now they just have that 3 Dragon Buster and no copies of Carrier, which obviously makes the deck a lot worse, and it already wasn't the best deck to begin with. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.